Hey, get out of here already.
Thud. My husband pushed me out the front door and locked me out in the extreme cold. It was New Year's Eve. Wait, I'm freezing out there dressed like this. Please, let me in.
No way. It's a punishment for not following my orders immediately. Shiver there for the rest of your life. Ha ha ha.
I bit my lip at the sound of my husband laughing through the door and hugged my own shoulders. I was sweating profusely from the last-minute cleaning, and my t-shirt was completely soaked through as I began to walk outside. After reaching out to my parents for help, I finally arrived at my childhood home and noticed my father's bright smile, which made me tilt my head in confusion.
I know you just got here and you're probably tired, but could you take a look on the balcony for a minute? You're going to see some interesting stuff.
I peeked out the window in horror, wondering what was going on. What? My husband was locked out half naked on the balcony and was starting to turn blue. I couldn't believe what was happening. My name is Nova, and I'm just an average housewife. Edgar and I have been married for 10 years without even realizing it. We have a daughter named Holly who will turn 8 this year. And although we're not wealthy, we're not struggling financially either. Every day our child is healthy and shares their daily experiences with us, laughing and smiling. Living a stable life allowed me to appreciate the happiness in such simple and uneventful days. However, this doesn't mean that life is always free of unpleasant events. I have one depressing day a year. That is a total of 4 days from New Year's Eve to January 3rd. For the first 10 years of our marriage, my husband and I would go back to my in-laws' house every New Year's Eve morning, where I would prepare the New Year's meals with my mother-in-law. And in the evening, I would also prepare dinner and such. Up until that point, it was still okay. Many housewives like me still do these kind of things. However, the problem starts after New Year's. My husband's relatives would gather in his parents' house, and I would have to act like a servant and entertain them. I pour drinks for my relatives who do nothing but engage in trivial conversations or watch TV, prepare snacks, and then wash the leftover dishes. It's no exaggeration to say that this is just a repeated cycle. The only time my mind can be at ease is when I go shopping for ingredients. If I had to choose between entertaining relatives and waiting in a long line at the supermarket, I'd rather do the latter. However, I should mention that my in-laws are not bad people, and my mother-in-law doesn't believe me for no reason. It's just that she holds on to some outdated values. Most of the relatives are elderly and have trouble walking or standing up straight. With the idea that a daughter-in-law is there to take care of the housework and housekeeping, my mother-in-law expects me to work more than anyone else. For their part, the relatives sometimes give Holly, my daughter, an allowance. Maybe it's understandable if you think about it, but I also think every year that I want to relax during the New Year's holiday. That melancholy starts to attack me in the first half of December. I received a call from my mother. Apparently, my father said he wants to spend the New Year's holiday with Holly for the first time in a while. We usually just stop by to say New Year's greetings on our way back from my in-laws' house, so it's been quite a while since we spent the holiday together. I go to visit during Holly's summer vacation for about a week, so it's not like I never see them, but I understand their desire to spend New Year's with their granddaughter. However, I wonder if my in-laws will allow it. I nervously contacted my mother-in-law. To my surprise, my mother-in-law agreed to it. Well, you've been coming to our house for many years, so if your father is saying that, then you should go back home. And make sure to take good care of your parents. I said thank you very much and hung up the phone. I couldn't help but wonder why I needed my mother-in-law's permission to go back to my own home, but there was no point in thinking about it now. I called back and said, I can come home for New Year's. and heard my mother's joyful voice on the other end of the line. It seemed like I could finally relax for the first time in a while during the New Year's holiday. The usually depressing end of the year felt brighter. When Edgar came home from work, I told him about what happened today.
Oh, really? That's great news. You're always dealing with your relatives, right? Forget about them all this year and just take a good rest. As Edgar said that, he gave me words of encouragement. Okay, let's do that, I replied. Then I asked, hasn't it been quite a while since you last saw my parents too? And then, unexpectedly, he replied with these words. I'm not going to your parents' house, Nova.
Huh? I had thought that Edgar would come with me. However, upon reflection, I realized that while I was happy to be able to return to my own family, it was not necessarily the same for Edgar. Were you hoping to go to your parents' house as usual? If you really want to, we can spend New Year's separately. When I responded with disappointment, Edgar quickly replied,
No, that's not it. No, I don't plan on going to your parents' house. I was just thinking of spending New Year's with my friends this year.
A New Year with friends? You're kidding. Don't make such a boring joke. I know that Edgar has single friends who are free on New Year's Eve, but does that mean he has to spend it with them this year? If he wanted to go to his family's house, I could understand, but why would he refuse to come to my family's house for that reason? What are you talking about? Come with me too. My parents also want to meet you, and there's no rush to spend time with your friends. You can do that next year. However, Edgar stubbornly refuses.
Well, I don't know if we can gather with friends next year, and besides, I don't like your father, Nova. He's kind of muscular and intimidating for his age, and he seems like he would get angry no matter what, so he's scary. I didn't want to feel intimidated on such a celebratory day as New Year's. My father is a retired firefighter and still does daily muscle training. So I admit he has a more intimidating presence than an average adult male. But to not want to come because of fear of feeling intimidated on New Year's Day. I feel the same way. I don't want to feel intimidated either. But this is not something we've done every year. Do you realize how difficult it is to spend several days at my in-laws' place with no place to call our own, trying to be considerate of your parents and relatives? Do you understand how much of a challenge that has been for me? It's because you're a woman. There's nothing to be done about.
Edgar raised his voice, exasperated by the argument. What do you mean there's nothing to be done about it? Don't say ridiculous things. Just as I was about to say so, I heard voices coming from the bedroom. Mom! Apparently our argument woke up my daughter. Sorry, Mom and Dad were so loud. Look, I won't make any more noise, so go back to your room and go to bed. I said this and headed to the bedroom with Holly. And then, on New Year's Eve, I was still at home, even though the time I had promised to meet my parents had passed. I should have arrived at my parents' house by sunset, but the cleaning took longer than expected. This year, I had put off going to my in-laws' house because I wasn't planning on visiting them. I was reflecting on this as I prepared to leave while wondering what exactly I had been doing. Suddenly, Edgar emerged from his room, seeming restless. I couldn't accept that Edgar had said he was going to spend New Year's Eve with his friends, so I ended up asking him about it. Hey, are you really not coming to my parents' house? Edgar showed obvious irritation at my question.
You're so persistent. I said I'm not going. More importantly, how long are you going to stay at home? Soon my friends will come over to my place. If you and Holly were there, it would be a burden for them.
That's right. Edgar had decided to spend New Year's Eve with his friends at our house, which was the reason why I had to clean the living room extra thoroughly. This was one of the reasons why the cleanup took so long. come to think of it, if Edgar had helped with the cleaning, we could have finished earlier. Instead, he only cleaned his own room and then just lazed around. I was quite irritated by Edgar's attitude, but I didn't want to worry our parents any further by going past our agreed time. I did not talk back to Edgar and quietly helped Holly get ready. Edgar then opened his mouth again.
Hey, are you done with Holly's preparation?
When I replied with yes, we finished, Edgar suddenly approached us. Then he forcefully handed me a coat, wallet, and the bag with clothes that were nearby.
All right, now go ahead and hurry up.
Then he pushed us out of the house. Wait a minute. Although Holly was ready, I wasn't quite done with my preparations. I had just finished sweating from cleaning and was only wearing underwear and a t-shirt on the upper half of my body, just in case I got dirty. I had planned on wearing a sweater or something warm since I had heard it was going to get cold tonight. Wait, Edgar, I'm not ready yet. Hey, open up, I begged. But contrary to my plea, Edgar locked the front door. Great, I'm freezing with just this coat on. I even forgot my gloves and scarf. I knocked on the door a few more times, but there was no response. What is he thinking? I considered staying outside until Edgar's friends arrived, but that wouldn't be fair to Holly. So we decided to head to my parents' house instead, walking to the nearest station and taking a train there. I knew that just wearing a shirt and coat wouldn't be enough to keep me warm, so we bought some warm drinks and hand warmers from a convenience store. That's when I realized I left my phone at home. Should I go back to get it? But I doubt Edgar will let me in the house. Besides, if I saw Edgar's face right now, I might punch him. Let's be positive here. Without my phone, I wouldn't have to talk to Edgar until January 3rd. Okay, let's relax with Mom during the New Year's holiday, I said to Holly, and she replied with a cheerful yeah that showed she wasn't bothered by the cold. I arrive at my parents' house and my mother greets me. Welcome back, my mother welcomed me with a smile, but then looked puzzled when she saw me. Why are you dressed so lightly? It's cold outside. And where is your father? Huh? What do you mean? As I listened to her, I learned that my father was worried when I didn't show up at that agreed time and drove to my house. Oh no, did we miss each other? My phone is at home, so I'll call my dad's cell phone using the landline here. Just as I thought that, the phone at my parents' house rang. I heard my mother pick up the phone and say, "Oh, it's your father. Nova just got home." Perfect timing. My mother motioned for me to take the call. Sorry, Dad. I was just about to call you, I said. I left my phone at home. And then my father replied.
Seems to be the case, doesn't it?
Why does he know that I forgot my phone? Was it just a guess? As I was thinking about it, my father continued speaking.
I know you just arrived and might be tired, but could you come back to your house for a bit, Nova?
What is he talking about? My father was the reason why I came back to my parents' house, and now he wants me to go back home? Besides, if I go back now, it'll be past midnight, and I'll be welcoming the new year alone. What is my father thinking?
I know it's sudden, but please, I'm begging you. You'll see something interesting.
In the end, I decided to go back to my house. Given the time, we decided to leave Holly with my mother. Going back home was quite bothersome. However, it was very unusual for my father to make such a request. I borrowed some clothes and a scarf from my mother to prepare for the cold. Then I got on the train again. When I arrived home, it was as I expected. The time had passed midnight. As I turned the doorknob of the front door, it was unlocked. I opened the door and entered the house. Then I saw my father sitting in a chair in the living room sipping tea. Wait, has my father shrunk a bit? Although he still had a good build compared to people of the same age, that's the impression I get.
Oh, Nova, welcome back. Sorry for sending you around everywhere.
Although my father apologized for that, that's not what's bothering me. What happened? Why are you inside? And where's Edgar? Today he's celebrating New Year's Eve with his friends here. As my father says that, I looked around and noticed clothes belonging to Edgar and a woman's clothes scattered on the floor. What's this?
Let me take a look first.
My father points towards the balcony. I approached there and opened the curtains. On the other side of the window, there were a half-naked man and two women shivering and turning pale from the cold. Of course, the man is Edgar. I felt like I had somehow come to terms with everything that had happened until today, but I realized that their lives could be in danger if they stayed outside like this. So I brought the three of them inside the house. Then I asked my father to explain everything to me again. According to my father, I didn't come back even though it was the promised time, so he became worried and came to pick me up. When he arrived, he tried calling my phone and heard it ringing inside the house. So he thought I was still inside and entered the house without ringing the intercom. Then he saw three half-naked people tangled up in the living room. After seeing Edgar's face, he understood everything, and in his anger, he threw them out onto the balcony and locked them out. I sighed deeply, feeling overwhelmed. Then one of the women spoke to me. Can we just go back to the shop for now? We haven't contacted the shop yet, so it might have become a big deal. When I asked what happened, the woman explained that they were sex workers who were sent to the house for work. They were caught up in the situation and didn't know what to do. I told them that Edgar was responsible for everything and asked them to explain to the manager when they returned to the shop. After that, there was a Q&A session with Edgar. Afterward, during the questioning of Edgar, I discovered that this wasn't his first time soliciting the services of a sex worker. In fact, he had been doing it regularly while I was away at my parents' house. He had also occasionally dipped into our living expenses. When I told him that I wouldn't be going to my in-laws' house this year, apparently he had planned to have a wild time with two sex workers. And according to my father, he forgot to lock the door in his excitement to welcome the sex workers inside. Don't be silly, what the hell were you thinking? Is that why you refused to show up at my parents' house? I can't see you as anything more than a piece of filth. I'm divorcing you. I expect to receive appropriate alimony for damages. Tears welled up as I spoke the words. What in the world has the past 10 years been for? When Edgar heard my declaration of divorce, he clung to my feet, trembling.
I mean, come on. I wasn't cheating on you with just one woman. It was just paid services. And besides, I'm the one who earns the money here. Divorce is too drastic, don't you think? Due to being left out on the balcony by my father, my husband was so cold that he couldn't speak properly. However, instead of worrying about Edgar, my father pulled him up by his feet from under me. He then brought his face so close to Edgar's that their noses almost touched. What are you talking about, you fool? When you get caught cheating, you are 100% in the wrong. What do you mean, bought a woman with money? You hurt and made my daughter cry. Don't mess around. You've committed a serious crime by ruining our last New Year's Day. With that, my father takes his hand away from Edgar. Edgar fell to the floor and lay there motionless. Was this to be our last New Year's together? I had a nagging worry in my mind, but I stood over him and made my declaration. I'm getting a divorce from you no matter what. I'll inform your parents and demand the compensation I deserve. And as for custody, there's no way I'll let you have it. With those words, my father and I walked out of the house. Afterwards,
Edgar and I got a divorce. I was able to obtain custody, and it was agreed that Edgar would make payments for compensation and child support over the course of the next 10 years or so. When I told my mother-in-law what had happened, she eventually came to my parents' house to apologize, and she was completely overcome with tears. "My son has truly caused you a great deal of trouble." She repeatedly bowed her head and said that she had disowned Edgar. So I asked her to continue seeing Holly occasionally. I told her that it wasn't her fault and that she should continue to love and care for Holly. As for Edgar, he reportedly received a hefty fine from the sex establishment, in addition to the compensation payment due to this incident. This includes unauthorized extensions without prior notice, sexual intercourse, and causing harm to the health of the sex worker. It seems that the fine could have been invalidated if Edgar had hired a lawyer, but he was already struggling to make payments for compensation and child support and didn't have the money to spare. As a result, it seems that every month intimidating individuals come to collect money from Edgar. By the way, I did let Edgar know that if he ever fails to make the alimony and child support payments on time, I will inform his employer about his misconduct. So he has no other option than to work like a horse to avoid that from happening. As for my father, he passed away a few weeks after the start of the new year. In fact, he had been feeling fatigued for some time, and when he went to the hospital, they discovered he had cancer. By the time he was diagnosed with stage 4, it was already too late for treatment. At first, he didn't believe it because he wasn't feeling any major symptoms and thought it was just a minor issue. However, according to the doctors,
It's possible for your father's health to deteriorate to the point where he cannot maintain his current lifestyle. Please consider it a blessing if he lives for another 6 months.
that's what we were told. So he said he wanted to spend New Year's with us for the first time in a long time. He was hospitalized a week after New Year's Day, even though he and Holly had a great time playing together. Fortunately, he did not suffer much and passed away peacefully after being taken care of by us. It was a hell of a way to start the new year, but now I've regained some composure. I'm relieved that I was able to be with my father during his final moments and that I could end things with Edgar.